1995, survivor Jean Klein, interviewer Fred Charatan, Boca Raton, Florida, United States of America, language English, Reel 1. My name is Fred Charatan, C-H-A-R-A-T-A-N. Today's date is July the 25th, 1995. I am conducting an interview with survivor Rabbi Jean Klein. The interview is being conducted in Boca Raton, Florida, United States of America. I'd like to begin with you saying your name, Rabbi, and giving its spelling.
My name is, since I came to the United States, is Jean Klein, G-E-N-E, K-L-E-I-N. At home, in the non-Jewish name, was spelled J-E-N-E. It was pronounced as Jene, Jene Klein. And I was best known, even by my non-Jewish friends, with my Hebrew name, Yaakov Chaim Klein.
Did you have any nicknames?
I did not have any nickname. The only nickname that I got was in the concentration camp, and I had to change my name for a reason, as we'll explain later.
And your date of birth?
I was born April 11, 1919.
So how old are you now?
I am now 76 years old.
And the city and country of your birth?
The city was Bachko Petrovo Selo, spelled B-A-C with an accent on it, K-O-P-E-T-R-O-V-O-S-E-L-O. And that was in Yugoslavia.
I'd like you now to cast your mind back to your childhood and your family life and growing up in your hometown.
I grew up in a very fine religious home. My father was a reverend, was a shochet and a cantor. I was the sixth child in a family of 7 children. My memory goes back to the day when my parents, my father and mother, took me to the cheder. When they first cut my hair off, and my father wrapped me in a tallis and brought me to the cheder. My mother, may she rest in peace, with a bag of honey, cookies to distribute to the other children. My father had somewhat of a Hasidic background, but he himself was not what you would call an ultra chassid. He was not hung up on one Rabbi. He respected every Rabbi. In his life, I have never heard him listen to anyone talk anything wrong about any Rabbi. He would get very upset, and at best he would walk away from it, and at worst I saw him once slamming a bunch of keys on the table and yelling out, "When are you going to stop talking Lashon Hara?" He was a very fine person. Whatever time he had, he spent learning. Whatever money he had, he gave away, to the extent that my mother had to ration him how much money he can have in his pocket. Because if people would come to ask for charity, he would just put his hand in his pocket and just give whatever he had.
What language was spoken at home?
In our home we spoke Yiddish. On the street we spoke Hungarian. Officially in the schools we spoke Serbian.
Did your home have a radio and a telephone?
No.
Did you?
Not when I remember.
Did your family get a Jewish newspaper?
Yes, definitely. Jewish and non-Jewish newspapers.
Yes. Every day?
Every day.
Yes. Can you tell me more about your education?
My Jewish education started on my birthday, which was just a week before Pesach, and I was 3 years old. I went to Cheder, Yeshiva Katana, and then went to some big name yeshivot in Romania, Krola, Satmar, and then after 3 years of learning there, I came back and I studied as an advanced student who was tutoring other students in the yeshiva in Yugoslavia, in Stara Kanizha.
So your education was all from a yeshiva, not from public school?
Yes, I went to public school starting at the age of 3.5.
Yeah.
I went through 9 grades.
And you had your matura?
I got tutoring even beyond that.
You went to gymnasium and obtained your matura?
Yes, I did. I did obtain the equivalency of a matura matriculation.
How many people lived in your town?
The population was approximately, I would say, 18,000.
How many Jews?
Jews, between 120 and 150 families.
What about anti-Semitism?
Anti-Semitism in our city was divided in 2 parts. As far as the Serbs were concerned, they were very, very good to the Jews. There was no discrimination whatsoever. Great support, great freedom. However, the Hungarian minority, who were Catholics, they were anti-Semitic. And occasionally there would be fist fights in the streets. And I even remember one blood libel that the Hungarians started up, which was squashed and cleared by the Serbian government.
Would you say that the Yugoslav government was on the whole tolerant of the Jews?
Much more than tolerant. I would say that they were extraordinarily friendly. Our chief rabbi had a golden key to the palace of the king. He could enter at any time. The friendship goes back even before Yugoslavia became Yugoslavia. The first King Peter, when he gained independence from the Ottoman Empire, sent Dr. Alkali, who was the chief rabbi of Yugoslavia, to the United States to get political and financial support, and the friendship started from there. There was, as far as the Serbs are concerned, there never was, and still there is no anti-Semitism whatsoever. There is anti-Semitism among the Croatians and among the Slovenes, the Muslims. They are anti-Semitic.
Yes. In your town, Did anti-Semitism affect your family personally?
Not to a major degree, except for that one incident that I remember that was a blood libel,
Yeah.
a real blood libel. I don't want to go into details, but there was a Jewish family who began a store, a general store, department store, in competition with a Hungarian who had a department store. And he enticed the maid of that Jewish family to hide, and rumors started to spread that the Jews kidnapped her and took blood for the Passover matzahs and so on and so forth. It was finally squashed when Dr. Alcala intervened, and King Alexander personally sent down his troops and cautioned the Hungarian population for dire consequences if they do the pogrom that they intended to do. Eventually the maid was found and the whole story came out, and the culprit was sentenced, was tried and sentenced.
Did your ancestors live in the town?
No, my ancestors came from what became Romania. All that territory before the First World War belonged to the Austro-Hungarian Empire. And my parents, my mother came from Hungary, my father came from what was Hungary at that time, and they moved to the place that we lived, which was also Hungary at the time that they moved there. But after First World War, the part that we lived became part of Yugoslavia, and the parts where my ancestor came became part of Romania.
What was your daily life like when you were growing up?
Daily life, learning, and more learning. We had fun also. In the morning till 2 o'clock, from 8 to 2, I attended regular public school. From public school, every day we went directly to the Cheder, or later in the Yeshiva Ketana, and learned till 7 o'clock. 7 o'clock was the end of the day for us. In between, we had played ball also, and had childhood fun normally.
You played soccer?
Yes, we played soccer, and I still carry the mark of it.
Do you belong to, at that time, did you belong to any organizations, youth organizations, or youth groups, or things of that kind? No?
No such thing existed.
No, I see. There was no Maccabee or...
No, the only, later on, in my late teen, I met Jabotinsky in Belgrade, and I listened to him, and I prayed and hoped that my father won't find out about it.
He was the leader of the revisionist Zionists.
Yes. My father was not a Zionist.
No. I also wanted to ask you whether your family thought about emigrating to Palestine.
Yes, we did. And unfortunately, we did not. We had the means, but we did not. I don't want to go into the reasons why not. It had to do with the anti-Zionist feeling of the Rabbi.
Did you get much warning about the coming of World War II?
Yes.
Can you recall what kind of...
Well, since the Anschluss, we got refugees from Austria.
Yes.
As a matter of fact, one of the refugees was a professor of English, Oxford professor of English, and he taught us English. A group of students, we learned the English language, the King's English language in that time. And we knew what was going on. We read the newspapers, we listened to the radio.
Oh, you had a radio later, you mean?
Yes, we had a radio later. Not many radios, but we had a radio later. I don't even know whether in my parents' home whether we had a radio or not, but we had a radio nevertheless. My brother had a radio, and I might have had a radio too.
Do you recall when the Germans attacked Yugoslavia?
Yes, I do. The second day of Pesach, 1941. That's when the Hungarians marched in to our town.
Your town was occupied by Hungarian troops?
Yes, that whole section was occupied by the Hungarians, who were part of the Axis.
Yes. And how did that affect the Jewish community at the beginning of the
Drastically. Drastically.
Yes. Can you recall...
The next day all the men were taken out with our venerable rabbi with a long beard, and were carrying shovels and picks and brooms, and we were ordered to clean the muddy street. It was very muddy, our street was not paved, and we were insulted, beaten and spit at by the Hungarians.
These were Hungarian troops?
Yes. No, by the Hungarian population
and by
also.
the civilians? Yes.
But civilian also, not only the troops. The Hungarians were as viciously anti-Semitic as the Germans.
Did the occupiers set up a ghetto?
No ghetto was set up, at least not in my time. But there were restrictions. There were different orders every day.
Your family lived in an apartment?
We had a home.
A single-family home?
Single family home.
Yes. In the center of the city?
In the center of the city, right next to the big synagogue.
Did they permit you to continue to live in your home?
Yes. We continued to live till the very end, even after I left.
What kind of restrictions did the occupiers put on the Jews then?
Every day something else came out. With taxation, we could not do one thing, we could not do the other thing, and we were constantly harassed, brought into the gendarme, and kept there for hours on end.
Was there a curfew imposed?
Yes, there was a curfew. Not during the whole period. A certain period there were curfews imposed. My memory is vague about that because actually I was not too long under the living at home. They came in April 1941. In February 1942, I was called in labor camp.
Yes.
That the Hungarians set up.
How did your family manage to get money for daily living?
My father was employed by the community, and he was a salaried person. He made a living. He made a good living, and the children made a living also, including myself. At that time, I was already married. I married at the age of 19, was in 1938. And by 1942, I had 2 children.
Did you have your own home then?
I lived not in my own home, I lived in a rented home.
Yes.
My own household.
With your wife and your 2 children?
My wife, and at that time 2 children, another child was born during the time that I was in the labor camp.
Yes. But how did you make a living then? How did you support your family?
My brother, my oldest brother, was a partner and a plant manager of a paper products factory, employing over 100 workers. And I worked with him. Both he and I were very mechanically and technologically inclined. Partially I made a living, and partially my wife made a living. My wife and my sister had a store together, from which they made a living also.
Your brother was permitted to continue operating the factory then?
Yes.
Yes.
Was operating 24 hours a day.
Yes.
3 shifts.
There was then no so-called Aryanization of Jewish
Well,
business?
there later, I don't know the technicalities of it,
Yeah.
but later they did have to take a Hungarian into the factory, and whether he was a partner or the name, but they somehow managed
Yes.
to continue.
So you continued working for your brother until you were taken into the Labour Battalion.
That's right.
In April of 1942. Now,
February 19.
February 42. You were an ordained rabbi then?
No.
You got your shmika?
I did not work. You have to understand, we all went to yeshivas. We
Yes.
all received the diploma.
Yes.
But we did not go in to become professional
Yes.
rabbis. My father was very much against that.
I see.
He only wanted us to have the education,
Yes.
to have the knowledge, but we did not make a living out of being a rabbi.
Yes. I only asked that because I wondered whether being a rabbi would have affected your being taken away from the labor camp.
No, not affected at all.
Yes. Even rabbis were taken.
It makes no difference. It affected my status with the military in Yugoslavia, when I would have to go to serve in the army. As a rabbi, I was entitled to a different category of service.
Yes. So February 1942 found you in the Labour camp, the Labour Battalion.
Labor.
Where was that located?
Sombor,
Sombor.
Yugoslavia. And we were there building airports.
Yes. How many Jews were taken for that work?
I really couldn't tell you.
You were one of many, though.
Yeah, there were several hundred of us.
Yeah. Who was in charge of you there?
The Hungarian army. During the day outside, we had to play the role of a soldier.
Were you given a uniform?
We were given sort of a uniform, yes, but no weapons. And in front of the soldiers we had to salute, and we had to march like soldiers, but we were treated as slaves.
Yes, you were really slave labourers.
Exactly.
Dressed in uniform.
Exactly.
And how did they feed you?
How did they feed it? In Yugoslavia we had no problem. Food was no problem. It was a very rich country as far as food is concerned. And we were fed well, and we even had our own kosher kitchen, believe it or not.
In the Labour Battalion?
Yeah, in the Labour Battalion.
How were you treated generally in that labour battalion?
Rough, but tolerably.
Abused, ill-treated?
Yes. Just in generally denigrated and insulted and put down all the time.
Yes.
Yelled at, sometimes even slapped.
Did you find any evidences of humane treatment or decent treatment at all? Were there exceptions to the brutality?
I'm sure there were individual exceptions. I did not come across that until I was in concentration camp in Germany, of one individual who was exceptional.
July 25th, 1995, survivor Jean Klein, Reel 2. So, as you were saying, February of 1942 found you in the labour camp.
Labour camp.
And can you carry on speaking about that?
Yes, it was very difficult for us, but we still had communication with our families at home.
Yes.
And there was occasion that we even got a few days off to go home, leave.
How did you get home? How did you travel home? By train?
By train. Was not Zomba was not that far away from where I live, perhaps 60 kilometers or 80 kilometers.
So you were able to get home and see your wife and 2 children?
Yes, and see the family.
And the family.
Yeah.
You were employed building airfields there?
An airfield, yes.
Yeah. That was not anywhere near the fighting front?
No, we did not have a fighting front because the war, fighting war, really did not come to us. They simply marched in. All the fighting was done in Belgrade when the Germans attacked the capital. But there was no battle or any military fight where we lived.
So how long were you in Sombor then?
I was there till June 1943. June. Yes, in June 1943 they embarked us on a boat, on a ship, on the river Tisa and the Danube, and we went down to Niš. From Niš we traveled not far to Bor, which was a large concentration of internees that worked under the German Todt organization. It was one of the world's largest copper mines. And the projects were unbelievable, the projects that the Germans had. I was involved there in building a tunnel that would divert the river from its bed and would create an electric power dam, and at the same time will enable the copper mine to become an open copper mine. They virtually removed 2 mountains. There were approximately 150,000 prisoners, labor workers. During the daytime, we were under the